We continue engaging with global social innovators making the world a better place. And one of them is an advocate for social change and helping address challenges to democracy around the world. What can we learn 97 days before we cast our vote? Let's bring in now Hahrie Han from the Johns Hopkins University, also recently recognized at this year's World Economic Forum. Ms. Han, thank you so much for joining us and congratulations on your recognition.
Thank you so much for having me, and Happy New Year today.
Happy New Year to you as well. You are not running an enterprise, Ms. Han, or offering entrepreneurship training. You are a political scientist. Share with us your social impact work.
Yes. So right now, in this moment of so much economic, social, and transformation all over the world, one of the things we're seeing is that there's so many social innovators who are doing so much incredible work to try to make the world a better place. And what we're doing at Johns Hopkins is we're really trying to understand what makes some of those social innovators more effective than others. Why is it that some social movements are better than others? And one of the things we really focus on is how leaders build organizations that are able to make the kind of change that is able to make people's lives better. And so in sports, in business, in politics, we think all the time about the role of leaders and being able to create organizations that improve people's lives. And it turns out that's true in social movements and social innovation as well.
Ms. Han, the past year has seen many global challenges. Here in the Philippines, we have a very important event taking place this coming May, and that is the presidential elections. And right now, voters are grappling with the health and economic impact of COVID. Are elections the best way for citizens to engage with leaders and demand change?
That's such a great question. We see that not only in the Philippines, but all over the world, that elections are a crucial mechanism that voters use and people use to be able to hold their governments accountable. The challenge is when that becomes the only way that people have to hold their governments accountable, it becomes really limited. And so one of the things that we have really tried to think about is how do political parties and candidates run elections in a way that leaves something behind in their communities. And a key finding that we take from that is this idea that the elections and the campaigns that are most effective are the ones that create communities of belonging among people. Very often, I think people think that sometimes belief comes before belonging, but in fact, through the history of social movements, one of the things we learn is that belonging comes before belief. When people feel like they belong to each other, they're more likely to commit not only to this one candidate, but to their communities for the long term. And that's how elections can begin to improve democracy.
I wanted to ask you on that issue because there are quite a number of presidential candidates in the Philippines running this May. And one is the son of a former dictator, the other a lady vice president with the opposition. You have a senator who's a former police chief, a senator who's a former world boxing champion, and an incumbent mayor, among others. Being a political scientist, you've seen them and analyzed their ambitions. How would the people know, the electorate know, if a candidate is genuinely for social change, a social innovator, and who wants to improve the lives of people?
That's such a good question, Rico, because every candidate that you see out there is going to say that they're out there doing it for the people. And what I would encourage people to do is look not only at what the candidate says, but what does the candidate actually do? And what we found is that you can tell a lot by looking at the structure of the kind of campaign that these candidates build. Are they building campaigns in communities that equip people, that equip voters to become architects of their own future? Do the people who are part of that campaign feel like they're just an interchangeable cog in someone else's machine? Or do they feel like they actually can help shape the campaign and how it plays out in their community? And I think if you talk to people who are part of the campaign, they'll be able to tell you, oh, you know, I feel like I really matter in this campaign. Or they'll say, you know what, if I don't show up to this meeting, it doesn't matter because someone else will. And people have a really good sense of that. What we found is that campaigns that don't treat people as interchangeable cogs, that actually help them become leaders in their own communities, those are the campaigns that are really invested in social change for the long term. And so you can tell so much more by what a candidate does more than just what they say.
Because sometimes here in the Philippines, and well, most of the time, campaigns are like entertainment events. And I want to ask you, Professor Han, can presidential debates where these aspirants are being questioned by experts reveal the true colors and the stand on key issues, let's say on social innovations and democracy of a candidate?
I think debates are a really important way for voters to get to know candidates. It's a really good way for them to understand what the similarities and differences are between candidate positions. So in that sense, I think they are really important. What a lot of research finds on the impact of debates in westernized democracies, though, is that they often do very little to change people's minds. And what they tend to do is they reinforce people's commitments to the candidates they liked at the beginning of the campaign. And so the challenge that a lot of campaigns have is not to rely only on debates as a way of getting to reach a broader range of people. And that's why it's so important that campaigns rely on just more than the things that happen on TV, but also on the work that they're doing in the communities every single day.
And Professor Han, taking a look at the bigger picture, the climate crisis right now is an issue that brings people together. It is an issue not only in the Philippines, but around the world. But often communities hardest hit by the environmental damage have the least power to bring about change. How do you change this dynamic?
Yeah, we've done so much work with environmental movements in the United States, but also all over the world. And I think one of the things that's really exciting about a lot of the climate movements around the world is that they're being led by young people. And historically, what we see is that young people are often at the forefront of social change because it's young people who have the critical eye and the hopeful heart that makes change possible. They're able to critique the world as it is, but they have hope that they can make it better. And the movements that the climate movements that we've seen that have been the most successful have three characteristics that are pretty common across all movements. First, they have leaders that are in relationship with people in positions of power. So they're negotiating inside the system to try to advocate for the change that they want. Second, they have a group of people on the ground who are actually equipped to be able to put their own hands on the levers of change. So it's not just numbers of people who show up, but it's about how effective those people are. And then third, those leaders and those people are connected to each other through systems and networks of accountability and relationship and things like that. And so the young people's movements that we've seen that have those three characteristics, those are the ones that are being able to advance real change within their countries on this crucial issue of climate.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. Hahrie Han, Professor of Political Science at Johns Hopkins University, joining us from Baltimore.